Let's get one thing straight. Banana Fish is not. Sorry, I had to. But what I meant to say was Banana Fish's genre is an action anime and not a BL. Sure, it features a gay couple, but that doesn't instantly mean that it's a BL, a yaoi, or a shonen ai. It's a crime series with a couple that just happens to be gay. We're not even 100% sure that they are a couple since their interactions seem mostly platonic and the kiss was necessary for that moment. It wasn't a romantic gesture. The series isn't centered around homosexuality or Ash and Eiji as a couple or follow any of the story tropes that BLs tend to have. Instead, it focuses more on, Banana Fish. So forget what you heard and what the media, the fandom, and what your friends told you. Banana Fish is 100% an action anime, and I'm going to prove this with one video, while also discussing whether or not Banana Fish was a good or bad representation for the LGBTQ+ community. And you can probably guess what I'm gonna say to that.
You only need one, fat boy!
Allow me to explain. The overall message that Banana Fish was giving to specifically gay and lesbian people was that if you are gay, you are either 1. A pedophile, 2. Will meet a pedophile, 3. Be sexually assaulted by said pedophile, and 4. Probably never get to live happily ever after with your partner. The end. I've mentioned this in my representation of sexual assault video, but I have done a lot more research on the topic since then. The series opens up with a homosexual pedophile, Marvin, and we definitely know that he's homosexual because Ash and many other characters already knew about it and they discuss it openly. Then Banana Fish continuously introduces you to more pedophiles throughout the series. Dino, Fox, Kipper, Frog, etc, etc, etc. Antigonius on YouTube wraps up what I think about this very quickly in a matter of a few words.
Sometimes the homosexual aspect of the story may seem a bit too overabundant for the average viewer, because after watching it, it's not that hard to gain an impression that you won't become a part of Corsican Mafia unless you're gay, and it wouldn't be that bad, but for a story that goes out of its way to be as realistic as humanly possible, it's pretty jarring to center such plot around boys' prostitution, yet forgetting to even briefly mention any girls.
So Banana Fish equates homosexuality with sexual assault without really meaning to, as if there wasn't enough harmful stereotypes about gay people in the world already. It misguides the audience by not mentioning any female perpetrators or female victims other than Jessica, who we'll talk about later, and though I have to hand it to Banana Fish for discussing sexual assault rather well in terms of Ash explaining it that it all has to do with power, not sex or feelings in general, it just seems kinda lazy to make every other bad guy be automatically gay and have all the good guys either be automatically straight or gay-ish. What do I mean by gay-ish?
あいつゲイなんだ。アッシュに気があるんだよ。
This dude is probably not gay. Well, he could be, but it's never blatantly said in the series. In fact, I don't even think he really knew what being gay meant, and was or still is uncomfortable by that term, considering Skip had to explain the situation to him at the very beginning, but whatever, moving forward. Eiji is interesting because there was no first love spark or anything cliche like that. He was just curious, just like Ash was curious of him. Their bond was completely natural and genuine, and it only kept growing, to the point where Sing refers to Eiji's final letter to Ash as a love letter in Garden of Light. Eiji also makes his first badass decision of not only ditching his chaperone Shunichi Ibe and staying beside Ash, a teen gang leader, but also risking his life in trusting a murderer. His choice was pretty controversial since Ash was definitely not a morally good person. We see him getting upset after overhearing Ash talk about killing someone and not being comfortable with the fact that Ash needs a gun to live. Eiji also argues with Ash from time to time about doing the right thing and points out that he's not stupid. He knows exactly what's going on even though he might not know a lot about America. However, Eiji was also able to see past everything and sympathize with Ash in his situation. He knew that deep down inside Ash had suffered more than anyone he had ever known before and wanted to be there even if he couldn't be much help. From asking Ash if he had killed anyone during his first few days in New York to holding a gun in front of the mafia Don Dino, Eiji was willing to sacrifice himself to protect Ash from his fate and offered numerous times a new home in Japan where Ash didn't have to live in fear. And although I have to admit Eiji is not my favorite character of all time, this offer was very sweet of him and I really wish we got to see Ash arriving at the airport just in time. Eiji may technically not be a part of any sort of representation since he never really says his sexual orientation or that he loves Ash in that way, but he doesn't really have to say anything at all. It's implied. Eiji didn't need to have sex with Ash to prove that feelings were there or kiss him romantically or anything like that. He cared for Ash and he never once expected anything in return. He just wanted to see him happy and that's really all love is. Just being there for somebody unconditionally, no matter how crazy they are. In terms of Eiji's character, if he doesn't count as an LGBT one, then he is definitely a good portrayal of a healthy relationship. And an asexual one, I might add. Ash and Eiji rely on each other for emotional support and Ash doesn't really feel comfortable with the thought of sex at all. Speaking of Ash...
でも14の時本当に好きになった子がいたんだ
へえやるじゃんかでどこまで行ったの
行く前に死んじまったのさ
This guy might not be gay either. He brings up the fact that he did have a girlfriend who he liked a lot. He turns down a lot of girls who confess their love to him because he doesn't want to see anyone else get hurt. And he has a general distrust towards older men due to his trauma. Sure, he hangs around more guys than he does with girls, but that doesn't mean he's homosexual. In fact, straight guys hang out with other guys like all the time. So that argument is out of the equation. Ash views himself as a monster. He doesn't like anything about himself and expects everybody to run away in fear after seeing how he truly is, which is probably the reason why he was so interested in AG in the first place. AG proves time and time again that he will never be afraid of Ash. I mean, who randomly asks to hold someone's gun the first day you meet them? AG has never once felt intimidated by Ash, and as they spend more time together, AG feels the need to protect him as Ash becomes more vulnerable. But I'm getting slightly off topic. So Ash hates himself, right? He's a murderer, I get that, but he's also gone through a lot, and we see a lot of his breakdowns throughout the series. Ash has a number of different mental issues, one clearly being depression and the other being an eating disorder, which is hinted at in the series before he develops anorexia, but he also might have some internalized homophobia due to being sexually assaulted by men numerous times in the series and during his childhood. He calls Marvin a slur, uses sex to lure in male guards, and only really talks about being gay when he's upset or thinking about his past. He's not exactly comfortable with the fact that he might be homosexual, but he's way more comfortable with the idea of homosexuality compared to AG. And yeah, I have a feeling Ash could have been bisexual, but regarding sex-wise, I don't think Ash would have ever had sex with anyone, male or female, due to his trauma. Yoshida tends to contradict herself a lot in her interviews, so there's nothing really saying that Ash and AG wouldn't or would have a sexual relationship later on, or even a relationship at all. But the point is, in canon Banana Fish, these two were just very close friends. AG helped Ash emotionally, just as Ash protected AG physically, and they don't go on a date or anything like that. They just hang out. But it's implied by how they talk about each other that they care a lot about each other, and they don't do the whole sex thing that every other anime does. I mean, Ash has never had consensual sex. It's always been assault, harassment, all that stuff. It would probably take a lot for Ash to want to do something like that because he has a lot of bad memories attached to it, and that's completely okay. That's good for the LGBT community because finally there's an anime without fetishizing or tons of fan service. It's more realistic to base a relationship like this where being friends means more than being lovers. According to Gracie Q on AniTrends.net, Banana Fish is not a good story about a gay couple, it's a good story with a gay couple. It indirectly helps normalize the idea of a gay relationship, all the while keeping the audience on its emotional and physical journey. So we're gonna talk about the author for a little bit, but I think the only reason why I might maybe consider Banana Fish as a shonen ai is because if Yoshida had published Banana Fish in 1990, she said that she would write it under a shonen or a seinen, not a shoujo. Banana Fish basically at the time was going to be written for a male demographic, but was changed to a female audience instead. And the story about two gay characters who are in a romantic relationship aimed towards a female audience basically makes up a BL or shonen ai. So Banana Fish is an accidental BL, if you want to put it in that way. Banana Fish also helped shape what BL really is today, since many other stories are based off of Ash and AG's relationship.
君は一人じゃない。僕がそばにいる。僕の魂はいつも君と共にある。
Here's the moment you've all been waiting for. It's finally time to talk about the bad stuff, aka homophobia, and how the media is so afraid of homosexual people for some reason. So translation is hard, okay? I get that. But when the English script puts in a slur or mistranslate pervert with gay, it completely changes what the Japanese script is trying to say. This could be because the manga from the 1980s had tons of slurs and other problematic features in it. But if you think about it, they updated everything from that time period to this time period, so why didn't they update the translations also being used? Plus, like I mentioned earlier, somehow every openly gay character in Banana Fish is automatically an antagonist, and every straight one is automatically a protagonist. Or a good person, you know? Not all gay people in real life are creeps. That generalization is disgusting and basically encourages homophobia. A gay couple isn't automatically going to be violent or abusive or having a major age gap because they are gay. And Ash shouldn't have to be punished for being gay either. As we see, his trauma is constantly brought up in the series. He's also kind of forced to flirt and be like promiscuous, and that's not really what being homosexual is. It's like normal straight couple stuff, like what AG is doing with Ash, not what Ash is doing to every other male character in the series. It's just weird. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about Jessica. Jessica was very similar to Ash in terms of being raped and fighting alongside her ex-husband Max. I want to say that she's also a parallel character to Ash since she's pretty much just a gender bent older version of him, and I do love how both of them just love Eiji's company and are very fast at making comebacks. Like, it's so cute. Yet she was allowed to have a happy ending. She remarries Max while Ash and Eiji never get to see each other again, and it both happens around the same time of episode 24. That may have been coincidental or just straight up telling the audience to root for the straight couple. It's kind of rare to find an LGBT series where the couple gets to have a happy ending. Like, there's always seems to be like this message that the media has to give when it comes to it. Straight couples don't constantly need to be reminded that their significant other might die or face homophobia or something bad like that. This TV trope is called the bury your gays trope and was kind of a big problem up until 2016. In some cases, it might even make the LGBT youth feel more suicidal or find themselves in hate crimes more often. According to whataboutdat.com, a third of all American television shows with queer female representation has ended up killing off their queer female character. A third! I mean, now that I think about it, in Last of Us 2, Ellie doesn't even get to stay with Dina. There's just always something keeping LGBT characters away from a happy ending. According to tvtropes.org, the gay person will often die first too, and have the most drawn out death. Like, what the fuck? Let me give you a list of some examples since you're probably thinking, well, there's Bubbleline and Garnet from Cartoon Network and the two cops from Gravity Falls, and Owl House looks pretty cool, right? Don't worry, I was totally thinking the same thing up until I saw this long ass list. Crazy, right? And I was reading Maya's funeral procession this weekend just because my real name is Maya and the characters kind of looked like me and it was a girl's love. But it sounds like being siblings is also a common trope for LGBT media. Like, killing stalking is basically two siblings, love or hate is two siblings. If you want to count Hikaru and Kaoru, Save Me, and Diluc and Kaya to be more modern. But my point is, why would you make a GL or a BL when they're not even allowed to be in love in the end? Like, you're just gonna kill them off or make them siblings or just not have them be together? There's a lot of issues regarding LGBT representation, especially in the anime, manga, manhwa universes, and it just doesn't go talked about, and I wish people would talk about it more. I didn't like Maya's funeral procession either because, okay, this is spoilers for Maya's funeral procession, but Reina just remarries? Why would she just remarry? She's obviously in love with Maya, right? Right? Like, ugh. At least Eiji stayed single. So while I have to hand it to Banana Fish for knowing how to write good, healthy relationships, it doesn't change the fact that the story is homophobic because all of the characters who are canonically homosexual are all nasty pedophile men who fetishize young boys. If they were to have added some female child victims, female perpetrators, or have had at least one homosexual character that was portrayed in a positive light, things may have been less problematic. I read somewhere that Banana Fish is basically a trauma porn, and I can kind of see what they're trying to say with that. Banana Fish was basically saying that you have to be straight to be good, and that's just not true. We're not villains or better than anyone else for being LGBT. We're just people, and the world seems to forget that way too often. As always, thank you so much for watching my video, and leave down comments about what you think. Lately, I've been getting so many comments on my videos, and it just makes me so happy to meet other people who are just as interested as I am in the series. Like, seriously, it makes my day. I know I sometimes make Banana Fish seem like a bad series, but I only criticize it because I love it so much. I want this series to be the best it could be, and it just has a special place in my heart, even though it's only been a few months since I first watched it. Anyway, if you don't really know what to comment, can you guys please give me more puns? I'm running out. Here's the one I came up with for this week. So Ash and Shorter grew up together, right? Well, between the two of them, Shorter will always be the shorter one.